Today, we're going to unpack a really shocking event from ancient history. But this isn't just a history lesson. It's about uncovering a powerful truth, how one single choice can set off a chain reaction that echoes for generations. So let's start with a number, 42. What in the world could this number mean in a story about kings and kingdoms? It feels totally random, right? But as you're about to see, this number represents something incredibly tragic.
And here's where that number comes from. Talk about chilling. This isn't just some statistic. It's a body count from a royal massacre. 42 men, every single one of them killed. No one left. An act of violence this extreme just begs the question,
What could they have possibly done to deserve that? Were they plotting a rebellion? Were they dangerous criminals? Well, the real reason they were killed is actually way more disturbing, and it all traces back to a decision that was made long before any of them were even born.
Okay, Section 1, a shocking royal massacre. So to really get what happened, we've got to set the scene. These 42 men, they were all princes from the southern kingdom of Judah. They were on what they thought was just a friendly diplomatic trip to their neighbors in the north, the kingdom of Israel. They had no idea they were walking straight into a bloodbath.
So just to be clear about who these guys were, they were royalty from Judah. They were relatives of their own king, Athaliah. And they were just traveling north to say hello, to pay their respects to the royal family in Israel. They thought they were meeting family, totally oblivious to the violent coup that was exploding around them.
It is the classic definition of being in the wrong place at the absolute worst time. But, that just makes you wonder, why were princes from Judah even visiting the kingdom of Israel in the first place? For centuries, these two nations had been enemies, constantly at war.
Which brings us to Section 2, an alliance sealed in blood. The only reason this trip was even happening was because of a brand new, totally unprecedented political alliance. After generations of fighting, these two rival kingdoms had finally decided to make peace. And they sealed the deal not with some paper treaty, but with a marriage.
And this was a huge shift. You had Judah in the south, centered on its traditional worship in Jerusalem, and then you had Israel in the north, which had become the center of worship for a foreign god named Baal. These two were bitter enemies. But now, a full-blown political and military alliance. So, what or who was the bridge between these two completely different worlds?
Her name was Athaliah. She was a princess from the north, sent down to the south to marry the prince of Judah. She was meant to be the living symbol of this new peace, the human glue holding these rival kingdoms together. But as we're about to find out, she brought a whole lot more than peace with her.
Section 3, the infamous king and queen. Now, to understand the poison Athaliah carried with her, you have to look at her parents. See, she wasn't just any princess. She was the daughter of maybe the most notorious royal couple in the entire Bible, King Ahab and Queen Jezebel.
Ahab and Jezebel are remembered as just the worst. They didn't just tolerate the worship of Baal, they made it the official state religion. They tore down their nation's history, they persecuted anyone who stood in their way, and their daughter, Athaliah, was taking notes. When she married into Judah's royal family, she basically exported their whole corrupt system to a brand new kingdom.
So what started as a seemingly smart political move, marrying off your son and daughter, it planted this seed of spiritual corruption. And that seed didn't just stay put. It spread like a plague.
And now we get to Section 4, one choice's deadly ripple. This is where it all comes together. We can actually trace a direct line from a single pragmatic decision all the way to the murder of 42 innocent men.
It's like dominoes. First, you have the practical choice. King Omri marries his son to Jezebel to gain power. That leads directly to step 2, the corruption of the entire northern kingdom under their rule. Then comes the export. Their daughter Athaliah brings that same corruption south, and that leads to the final step, the entanglement. The two families are so intertwined now that Judah's princes are visiting the north at the exact moment a rebellion explodes, putting them right in the line of fire.
And this, right here, is the absolute heart of the tragedy. Those 42 princes weren't executed for anything they did. They weren't traitors, they weren't criminals, they died for one reason and one reason only, because of the family they now belong to. They were just casualties of a corrupted family line, a consequence of a choice made a generation before they were born.
Section 5, a tale of two destinies.
This whole story really highlights a powerful, universal idea that the choice of just one person can start a chain reaction that shapes the fate of so many others, for good or for bad. There's actually a fascinating parallel to this idea in the book of Romans. The Apostle Paul talks about two patterns. On one side, you've got the pattern of sin. Through one man, Adam, death came into the world, and we see a tragic echo of that in our story. Through one king's choice, destruction washed over his entire family line. But then there's this other pattern, a pattern of grace. Through one man, Jesus Christ, life is offered to everyone, creating a totally new family line, one not of tragedy, but of grace.
It really boils down to this powerful symmetry. One person's disobedience swung open a door to death, but another person's obedience opened a door to life. Two totally different paths, both set in motion by the choice of one.
So, Section 6, the seeds we plant. This is where this ancient story stops being about them and starts being about us, forcing us to think about the seeds that we're planting with our own choices.
And let's be real, the choice that started this whole disaster, it didn't seem evil on the surface. It was pragmatic. It made total sense from a worldly point of view. It promised a stronger army, political stability, a better economy. It was the smart move.
But that one single practical choice, which put short-term gain ahead of any deeper principle, became the hidden root of a tragedy that spanned generations. The benefits were obvious and immediate. The costs were invisible and deadly.
And all of this leaves us with one final, lingering question. It's easy for us to sit back and judge the choices of kings from thousands of years ago. It's a lot harder to look in the mirror. So, what alliances are we making? What practical decisions are we choosing that might be planting seeds we can't even see yet? What ripples are your choices creating?